Ben Bergquam is my guest. He is an investigative reporter with America's Voice Live. Ben, thanks for joining me this afternoon.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Charles.
Now, Ben, you're out there on the street, really getting into the protest rallies. You've confronted Antifa before as a reporter. Let's talk about this most recent incident. What happened?
Well, so my run-ins with Antifa go back to 2017 in Berkeley. I'm here in California, and during that time, during the election, the lead up to the election, and then the subsequent President Trump being elected, I saw the rise of more violent radical leftists. They talk about the right-wing extremists. Really, what I've seen more often than not is left-wing extremists. And since then, I've got 13 stitches from being beat over the head with sticks in Berkeley, and my little top of my ear cut off and had to be sewed back on. And that was really kind of my initiation into what Antifa was. They claim to be anti-fascist, but in reality, they are the fascists. They just want to silence anyone who dissents with their communist, socialist, anarchist views. I was in Washington, D.C. actually yesterday, and saw them out there as well. They're opportunist thugs for the Democrat Party. They are used, and people need to understand this. There is no distinction between Democratic Party, the mainstream leftist media, activist judges, the far left organized groups like Indivisible, Antifa, even BLM. They're all one and the same. They go under this idea of intersectionality now. It's as long as we intersect in our ideology, we work together. And so typically what you see with Antifa is when there is an issue that the left can capitalize on, they send Antifa out there to cause disturbance. And ultimately, what the Democratic Socialists of America, what Antifa and what these far left anarchists, socialist, communist party individuals want is to destroy this country. And that's their main objective.
I think you describe it well. They're what Lenin called the shock troops that he used the Bolsheviks. It's what the Nazi socialists called the brown shirts, the SA. It's the same idea. It's the scissors effect. They work the streets, we work the boardrooms. They go out and crack some windows and do damage, while we in the high positions in the media and in the government and culture, we will do the narrative. We'll explain to the people. Meanwhile, in this particular situation, where there are legitimate and peaceful protesters out there responding to the murder of George Floyd, which is a terrible event and which is a problem in this country for sure. As President Trump says, there are good people out there as well.
Yes.
They are there basically burning and looting black neighborhoods, looting and destroying black businesses, killing black people. There's already a death toll. I think it's up to a half a dozen people have already been killed by these thugs, all of whom happen to be black. How does this fit into their narrative? I mean, don't they want to try to claim that anyone that doesn't goose step to the left is racist? Aren't they trying to say that Trump is racist? And yet they're destroying black neighborhoods. How does that work?
Well, it works because, just as you said, you've got a complicit media, a complicit political class, and even a complicit judicial system and education system that treads their water. And so instead of holding them accountable, like CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times and the Washington Post should be doing, they make excuses for them, even to the point where I saw them bending into pretzels, trying to say that it was white supremacist groups that were agitating and organizing these attacks on these black-owned businesses, which is absolutely nonsense. There may be some white supremacist groups out there that work to create dissent as well, but we're talking about a fraction of a percent compared to Antifa, which is well-funded, organized, and in every major city across this country now that is being used to create chaos. And that's the ultimate objective. So if it's to create so much chaos that we have to respond. And the tricky part is that we're in this weird dilemma right now, and we're at a tipping point and potentially at a paradigm shift where they go too far. And we've seen
Right.
that. You actually see the Black community come back and say, get out of here. And they're actually, like you said, the justified peaceful protesters that are rightfully outraged at the death of George Floyd are now finally standing up and saying, these guys breaking our windows and burning down our shops aren't with us. They're not for us. And you're seeing a backlash against Antifa. And so there's this shift, but they're always sent out on the front end of they're the tip of the spear for the left to create chaos. Ultimately, though, what they want with groups like George Soros's Open Societies Foundations is to create so much chaos in this country that they undermine the system and they recreate it in the socialist, communist, utopia that they envision it to be. And they use things like George Floyd's murder and BLM, which BLM is one and the same with Antifa in a lot of ways. They're just a rebranding of the Black Panthers. And so all of these groups tend to work in combination, but right in the middle of that are some really good people with some really good intentions, like the Floyd family. I mean, you've heard them come out. I was in Minneapolis 3 days ago when George Floyd's brother, Terrence, was there, and his message was simple: we need peace. Violence is not the answer.
Not to mention that they're good. They've described themselves as Christian people. I mean, these are they're not interested in this whole movement, and that in fact, my concern besides the Antifa, which I'd like to talk to you about, what if we can connect the dots in terms of them and George Soros and the international left organization, but. What about the fact that regular people who are concerned about police brutality, putting aside the fact that it's gone way down in this country, and putting aside the fact that it's happened in a very liberal left city of Minneapolis, in a state that I think the last time they voted for Republican was probably Eisenhower. Putting that aside, what is the deal with they're agitating for this to be seen as somehow an anti-Trump movement, and aren't they bringing out young people who are duped and who are naive, who think that there's something somehow terrible about Trump, and that they are associating this in their mind with this terrible racist attack?
This is all about the 2020 election.
Yes.
Everything we're seeing right now is about the 2020 election. The left is using this as an opportunity to attack President Trump. President Trump had nothing to do with George Floyd's death. And as you mentioned, you can't put it aside. Almost every single one of these cases, whether it was Michael Brown or all of the cases of police-involved killing of Black men, whether it was justified or unjustified, tend to happen in Democrat-run cities or states.
Right.
And the irony of all of this is they always seem to get away with saying this is a problem, this is a Republican, this is because of white supremacy, this is because of Republicans like President Trump. This is because of systemic racism. Well, if that's the case, then that means there's systemic racism in the Democratic Party or in the Democrat-run areas. And if we need to fix it, that's where we need to fix it. But they always get away with it because they have a complicit media. To your point, though, this is all about the 2020 election. The reason why they're trying to connect it to President Trump is President Trump is doing more to unravel this cabal of globalist, socialist, communist, anti-American forces, the deep state, as some call them. Really, it's the enemies within that our founders warned us about. And if President Trump wins again in 2020, they know that their days are numbered. A lot of these organizations, Antifa is a terrorist organization, there's no question about it, but there's probably another 24 organizations across this country that need to be labeled that as well. Organizations that a lot of them feed on our tax dollars, and we're slitting our own throats with. So that's why this is all pivoted back to President Trump, is because they've got nothing else. They had 3.5 years of a failed coup attempt. Now they had coronavirus, and America's going to be back on track. And now it's let's take the next tragedy and use it. And if George Floyd's death doesn't do that, it's going to be something else.
Yeah, who knows?
Between now and
I shudder to think of what they're going to come up with next. And Ben, you really have put it better than I possibly could try to. I mean, it's this is, President Trump is putting America first. He is reasserting national sovereignty for America and for other nations to do theirs. He's improving the economy. He's doing all the things that he said he would do. And yeah, the deep state and the internationalists are absolutely freaking out. They've tried to claim that he's a Russian spy, and that dragged through for 2 years. That didn't work. Then came the perfect phone call and this and that. And now they have us all locked down for this virus to the point where they're not. I mean, I get it maybe for a week or two, but this is going to go on. They'll drag this thing right in. I think Eric Trump said it right. They'll do it until the day after the election.
That's right.
I mean, I'm trying to reach the Massachusetts where I am. The health department, the city department in Boston where I am. They won't return my calls. I want to know simply, how long is this going to go on? They don't want to talk about it. They're not being honest about the whole thing. We know about these 2 phony reports about hydroxychloroquine that were published in the Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine. America's 2 most prestigious medical journals published phony reports for the first time, and they were caught because hydroxychloroquine probably works. It probably is a good preventative, and they don't probably want us to know that. I mean, right. And now this. Now you have a terrible racist incident, and we're never going to hear the end of it. We're going to hear it every single day between now and the election. And there's not going to be anything done to actually reform police departments or to maybe stop burning and looting black businesses. It's all going to be propaganda and agitprop against really the mainstream of America, including minorities.
That's the saddest part about it, because there is injustice in the world. There is injustice, and there always will be. We're in a fallen world with fallen people. Until we get to heaven, we're going to continue to live in that. The saddest part, though, is they try to replace that with moral relativism, with their, really godless, evil ideologies that put more people in harm's way. So the real thing that everyone should be demanding and standing up for, and the thing that we need to be calling for, is equal justice under the law. Doesn't matter the color of your skin, doesn't matter how much money you have in your pocket. Everybody should have the same level of protection under our Constitution and our system of law. And we don't have that now in America. Whether you're black or white, or it doesn't matter if you are low affluence versus wealthy in America, if you are the political elite versus, a nobody, a blue collar worker in America. There's a huge disparity there, and that's something that we need to address. But unfortunately, we're not addressing that because it doesn't fit the political agenda. And that is what all of this is about. And so for the audience, for people out there, as this comes, just expect it, whether it's President Trump or anyone else. The left, they're purely political beings. And whatever they can do to exploit you and exploit your fear and exploit a tragedy, they're going to do it. And whether it's the 2020 election or the ones coming after that, it's our objective, it's our job, it's our duty on the other side, on the right side, I would say, to stand up and expose it. Every generation has the same fight. And if we don't have people that are willing to stand up and support the rule of law, support freedom, liberty, and the foundation that this nation was built on, we're going to lose this country. We're as close as we've ever been. We're in a new civil war of sorts. It's a more of a political civil war, but it's time that everybody stand up, or else we're going to lose this country.
Yeah, I know that it sounds almost simplistic, and I feel almost weird saying this, but this is a struggle between the forces of God and the forces of Satan.
Amen.
It really, it comes down to those who want to actually have sovereignty over their own lives and futures under God, those who want their nation to operate based on moral standards that protect people and allow people to be free, versus this really nasty and really sinister cabal that's made up of people in very high positions of power like George Soros and the people that run social media and really other corrupted elements, usually what the Occupy Wall Street movement accurately called the top 1%. Them combined with this very, very nasty coalition of people on the street, like Antifa. These people are racist, they're anti-Semitic, they are anti-business, they're anti-American in every sense, and they want to tear down the country in every chance they can get.
Yes. You're absolutely right. The foundation of this, the foundation of our nation, the foundation of our Constitution is our God-given inalienable rights. And that's why for 100+ years, we've seen the progressive left in America try to tear down God, remove God from our social fabric, tear God out of schools. Now, instead of having prayer in schools, you have moral relativism, you have restorative justice, where a kid can literally beat up a teacher and be put back into that same school and have virtually no consequences. You wonder why school shootings are up. You wonder why the Black community is failing. It's because we've removed God from our society. We've replaced fathers at home, and we've replaced God with more government, and it's doomed to fail. But that is what it is. We're in a battle of good versus evil, spiritual forces, principalities, and powers of darkness, and it's up to those that shine the light to stand and shine that light.
Absolutely. I mean, a perfect example is the murder of George Floyd. I mean, the man who murdered him had already murdered other people, and he had been let go by a very morally relativistic district attorney in Hennepin County by the name of Amy Klobuchar. So, these people are on the street because liberals apparently think that there's something warm and fuzzy about letting them go out and then commit these horrible crimes. Anyways, Ben, let my listeners and viewers know where they can read your column and where they can listen to your program and everything else.
AmericasVoice.news is our website, AmericasVoice.news. You can also find us on Pluto TV and Dish Network, channel 219.
All right, Ben Berquan, I want to thank you for joining me. Let's do it again. We should stay in touch, especially as things develop. And have a great afternoon.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Ben. And I'll send you a link once it's up on YouTube.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Pleasure.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.